Hello and welcome to the Paper One support for the source questions. This is going to look at typical questions and focus on the American West this time. So with the source questions, there's a section A which is medicine and you have 5 marks. That could be a combination source as it was last year. So that would mean that you'd have a source A and source B, compare them and talk about what makes them similar or different. You could have a talking about how useful it is or why it was published. Section B with the American West, similar kind of thing. But the weighting for this is 7, 6, so 2 7 marks and a 6 mark. Could be that they jumble around, so don't feel too worried if your questions look different. That's the idea, that it's a test. Typical source questions though, how useful? It's asking you to weigh up how useful it is, and equally it's like an iceberg question. How is it not useful? And then you're saying why. What makes it useful or what makes it not useful? Second kind of question is why was this published? You're talking about 3 things. The message of the source, so what it actually says. Context, which is background knowledge that you've got from your lessons, from anywhere really. And purpose, which is the why component of the question. Then you've got the final bit, which is how far. We've seen this before with the 7 marker or the 8 marker. How far does the source agree with something? So again, it's a balance. State how far it does, how far it doesn't, and then again, why? Why are there differences? Okay, brilliant. So let's have a look at an example. Our first example is a source A question, which is looking at conditions on the plains are very disappointing. So it's a statement. And it says to use your knowledge to explain how far you agree with this interpretation. So again, we're saying how far we agree with it, how far we don't. Let's take a quick look. The first thing I do is I look here. I'm looking at the provenance. This is the bottom bit of the source, which tells me who it's from and why. So this is from a letter to a mother in Sweden. So interestingly, we're already talking about somebody who is not from America. The letter was written in 1870. We could do something with the date. When they arrived, they went to Lake Sibley in Kansas with their family. So they've gone as a family. They stayed at first with Albinson, who had emigrated to the US a few years before. So some sort of experience, but I'm interested certainly in this and definitely the date. Now have a quick look at what it says. Read the source, but to get to the point, it says here that we're packed in tightly. So it's suggesting here that they can't move. It's quite crammed. We drove across endless prairies. That suggests that it's quite a long and quite a tedious thing. And it suggests here with the word desolate that there's not much going on there. The country seemed, and the roads seemed quite frightful. The Indians are not far away, so we've got an element of fear. So 2, it's desolate. 3, they're afraid that they might be robbed. And they even say that because it says here, all the men come riding by armed and look like highway robbers. And that's it. I've got 3 things I want to take from that source. Let's have a look at how we're going to use it. How far do you agree? First of all, we start off with the source. According to the source, the homesteaders did not enjoy their experience. So I've gone straight in. So I'm going straight with it according to the source. I then used a quote. So I've taken something straight from the source. The first thing that we mentioned when we looked at the source, it was tightly packed. Then I suggested what that means, why they bothered saying that. And here is where I've used the own knowledge. Okay, own knowledge. Although this is true, families tended to use several wagons and would take all their belongings with them. I don't know why it would be so crowded for this person though. So they're going with their family. Maybe it's just that one wagon. We have to make an assumption with a source sometimes. They also mentioned that the land was barren and desolate. Another quote, suggesting there was nothing there. This was true. Here's the own knowledge. The homesteaders did find it difficult when they moved west as the seeds they'd taken with them wouldn't grow. It was also hard to find water. Finally, third point here. Third point. It talks about the lack of law and order and the worries that come across Native Americans. This was also true. The problems with the Indians were rare. But when it did happen, it was due to the homesteaders getting in the way of their territory or preventing movement. Again, there's my own knowledge. On the opposite side to this, so we've counted it, we're saying that many homesteaders moved for the challenge and for the ownership of land. They were moving west to escape the problems in the east, You could talk potentially there about what problems. It could be the economy or whatever. We also know, specifically from the source, that these were a foreign group who were escaping from Sweden. So we could link that to purchasing land. This was something that was not mentioned in the source. Homesteaders were also able to overcome, I don't want too many of those, so I'm self-editing. Look, homesteaders were able to overcome the problems, and therefore this one account does not represent the full picture of the homesteaders on the plains. It's got some own knowledge, it's got a little bit of stuff in there from the source, and it's given some reasons as to how far I agree with this. I might want to change this and add a little bit more to say how far then I agree nicely at the end. Source B. This question is saying, how useful is this source? Remember, we're talking about how useful it is. Scruffy writing, there we go, brilliant. And how not useful it is. So you've got a balance. So I've got some sort of clues and heads up and hints. Look straight at what it is. It's a photo. Why might that make it useful or not useful? The date, and also the fact that it's the homesteaders. Instantly, this bit of provenance here has given me a clue. Now let's look at the photo. I absolutely love looking at the sources because they do reveal a lot. Remember, the key really with the source is say whatever you can see and back it up. There's going to be plenty of points, but what they want to see is you explaining it. First question, does this look natural? They're sat on chairs facing somebody with a camera. Does that look like day to day? Probably not. Therefore, it doesn't look natural. I'm going to say it's not that useful in telling us about the American West. It does tell us about roles, though. It does tell us that there's a woman here. It tells us that there's an old guy. There's a son. And there's possibly a father. So this is suggesting that they're all members of a family. That's useful to us. This house at the background, it looks like, without me tapping on the screen and potentially losing all this recording, this looks like it's built from earth, or it could even be bricks. It looks like there's wood underneath. That's useful in terms of telling us about how the American West was lived. A windmill. This here is clearly being used to pump out water. The ground is looking quite desolate. So this suggests that, again, it's quite useful in telling us about that. There's animals. This tells us, again, how useful it is. The photograph, the way that it's set up, potentially suggests not useful. But again, let's try and pull this into an actual answer. So let's look at an example. Here's our example. First of all, I'm going straight in with the source is useful. Straight in with the answer. It's a photograph. Check. Good. We can read. It's captured the reality of life in the American West. Now we go to the problem. The problem with this is that it's clearly staged. The people are sat on chairs facing the camera. Good. The source is also useful, so it's my second useful point, because it reveals the type of conditions on the plains. Now let's have the evidence. The windmill. This proves that they use the power of the wind to draw water up to keep crops healthy. That's a cracking little point, that. The building also reveals the type of materials they use for construction. It's another point here being made. This was usually using sod as a material. Now I go for the opposite side, how it's not useful. It only reveals the life of just one family. It does not tell me what life was like to begin with when the homesteaders arrived on the plains. That's nice. So I'm talking about the big picture. It is also showing a family simply sitting on chairs. Again, not useful. It doesn't tell us a lot about working conditions, their roles, what life was like generally. Was this a typical farm? And so on. I could go on quite a lot with this. I know that there were also many homesteaders used barbed wire, own knowledge, to protect their land from cattle. That's not in the photo. There's lots that it doesn't show us, but equally remember that it's a balanced answer. Overall, there's my conclusion. It's not useful. And I've added the very to suggest that I've placed a value over the usefulness. It gives a realistic impression of family life, and their living conditions. Nothing about everyday life or experiences in the American West, though. So again, that's how I would balance that, and that would probably get you full marks. Okay, now we're on to the third question, which was why was this painting published at the time? Remember, message, context, and purpose. It's definitely telling you to use the source, and it's saying to use your own knowledge. Failing to use your own knowledge means that you're only going to get half marks. Beautiful source. This is in textbooks as well. I love a nice little colour source. Right, first things first. It's about the homestead. It's a painting. Brilliant. And it's the second half of the 19th century. Fine, great. So the homesteaders. What have we got? First of all, looks like sunshine beaming through the clouds. It's lovely. It looks like God's on their side. It looks possibly a little bit manifest destiny. What else have we got? We've got lots of workers here. We've got animals. We've got lots of animals. We've also got traditional male and female roles. We've got a nice little house. It does look as though it's made from earth, so that is kind of true. We've got crops down here. It's all looking really green, really green everywhere. Wow, where is this? This is definitely not the American West, and it's not the plains. So interestingly, we now look at question, why was it painted at this time? Clearly, something's going on. The question I'm going to pull out from you is, first of all, what's going on? Then a little bit of background about what homestead life was like. And then we'll go with why it was painted. So this is the example. Why was this source published? Let's go straight in with the message of the source. The message is that the homestead was prosperous and happy. That's my point. The evidence now should follow from the source. The sunlight, there we go, suggests that it was a positive experience. The farmer seems to be ploughing his field with lots of greenery. This is also supported, another bit of evidence, nice, by the crops seen at the bottom left of the image. The mother and child also seem to be working well and their clothes look clean. So evidence. At this time, this is now where I'm using some own knowledge. So at this time in the 19th century, homesteaders did struggle with all of these things. Now I'm using my knowledge. We can see their crops took time to grow. And some had to resort to buying Turkey red wheat. Very specific bit of own knowledge, beautiful bit of own knowledge there, to even grow anything. The land was largely barren and inhospitable. Even if you couldn't remember this, if you remember the last source, that's exactly what it was talking about. Here's my explanation, which means that the green grass was not commonplace. The clothes of the cleanliness were also false, as most families needed to work hard, and the dusty conditions would have meant keeping clean too. So we've gone message, we've gone context, all in there. And now the last bit is the purpose. Oh look, and I've gone the reason. So that's really made it clear that I've gone message, context, purpose. The reason this painting was created was to encourage people, that's my first reason, to move west and to settle there. The American government and rail companies wanted families to move west to fulfill the manifest destiny, it's the second reason I'm giving, of the nation, and to expand America's westward journey, or to expand the Americans westward, which is what it should have said just there. So there we go. That would have given you pretty close to full marks, if not full. Well done.